Hey y'all, we've been married 17 years.
Bruh.
Anniversary just passed.
Yes.
I got almost messed it up because we've been together for almost 20 years. We're coming up on 20 years. I'm just claiming the 20.
Yeah.
But we just had our 17th year anniversary. And we were recently thinking about this 50% divorce rate.
Right.
And the reason we were thinking about the 50% divorce rate
Bruh.
is because we just watched a season of Married at First Sight.
Yeah. A couple of seasons.
But no, the season we just watched, everybody broke up. It was just like...
What season was that? 12?
Everybody.
Season 12?
13? I think it's 13. 13.
The season with Johnny and Bao, whatever season that is.
Everybody broke. And we were just like, y'all out here is completely
Well,
destroying this
one
kid.
of them survived.
This divorce rate is going to be terrible. But because of y'all, you got all these folk out here who getting married to strangers, people they never met, and just trusting. It's really an arranged marriage, but it's an arranged marriage from people who don't really know you, trying to arrange you together. And we like, yeah, this is our divorce rate. This is what's going on right now. This is our life. And all of that's in that 50% divorce rate right there. None of them made it. Well, okay, one couple made it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they're still together, but everybody else, then like after the show, like technically was done, the experiment was done, people from the other marriages was getting with other people that got divorced. It was
like
just
swap.
It was
spouses.
There was wives swapping up in here. And we just like, yo, this is crazy. So we're watching the show mostly for y'all, just to keep it above.
Yeah.
We're watching it for y'all because we're trying to look at the characteristics that people have that are making these relationships fall apart. And one thing that I sort of came to the realization of is the 50% divorce rate may not actually apply to everybody. And you go,
True.
Why? Why don't you think the 50% divorce rate apply to everybody? Because if you get married, then you are automatically a part of the rate of people who are successful or who fail.
Yep.
Well, I'm talking about to you personally.
Yeah.
You decide whether or not the 50% divorce rate applies to you. The question is how. And that's the big thing.
Right.
How? So I was looking at this, I was looking at the show, and for those of you who know, me and my wife are going through a thing. She was recently diagnosed with some crazy stuff, so we're going back and forth to the doctor. And one of the things is when you're diagnosed with something, the doctors we had specifically told us what the survival rate is overall for this particular thing. This is the survival rate. But here's the tricky thing. Variations for you personally change dependent on your health, your age, and
Pre-existing conditions.
right, the pre-existing conditions and the disease itself.
Right.
Because there's variations of the disease. They said they have over 100 different types of this thing. All of that. Huh?
No, when she said it, I was just like,
Yeah, it's like 100 different types. And then what stage is it in? And how fast? Is it fast or is it slow? And all of these different factors determine whether or not you're on the higher end or the lower end. So you as a person have the same exact thing happening as far as your marriageability and your ability to stay married.
right.
And that's what I wanted to put out there for people, because a lot of people are getting scared away because you're seeing how crazy the dating market is. And guess what? We've been out for a while, obviously, because we told y'all we've been together for almost 20 years, right? So we obviously have been off the market for a while. And they were like, look, even 10 years ago, the dating market was completely different. And I was like, what happened? What are y'all doing? Come on, man. But part of it is you have these offshoots. You got people still going to Vegas and getting married. You got TV shows and all this other crazy stuff. And the reasons that people are getting married are all different. Like if you're going to somebody and the only reason you're getting married to them is because they make a certain amount of money, your marriage is in jeopardy from the time that you say, I do.
Yep.
Because that's not going to save you. That's not going to keep you. You may stay for a while. You might even stay 20 years. And, that being the case, you end up being married longer than me and my wife. But eventually that's going to come up. That's going to catch up with you.
Right.
If the person that you're married to, because everybody loves ambition. Everybody talks about ambition. I want somebody who's ambitious.
Right.
Do y'all have any clue the lifestyle that somebody who was super ambitious lives? How much time do you think they got for you?
Ain't nobody got time for that.
And here's the thing. Everybody grows.
Right.
Everyone grows. Everyone changes. We denying it. We lying to ourselves about it. We all change. And here's the thing, when it comes to you and relationships with people, you either grow together or you grow apart. And if you're not spending any time, guess what's happening?
Yep.
So your ability to deal with certain aspects of your relationship will determine directly what your ability to stay married is.
Right. So what are we talking about exactly? So for example, if you guys have seen any of the episodes of Married at First Sight in general, or if you watch this particular season in general, I mentioned Johnny and Bao, for example.
Right.
Everybody on the cast, they were entertaining. They all have different personality types. And this is not to knock any of them.
Right.
But it's to highlight different things that can help you when you're looking for a mate, when you're trying to be the best version of yourself so that you can be a good mate for your significant other when that time happens.
Right.
Specifically with Johnny and Bao, there was a stark difference between the two of them. And I don't know if by now, him watching the season back or maybe just having interactions with different people, whatever, I think he was clueless as to the part he played in the downfall of the two of them basically not working.
Right.
Johnny says that he wants to be married. However, his mindset when it came to relationship was not conducive to a successful marriage. He had certain expectations, I guess, or just certain things that weren't realistic. One of the issues that he said that he had with Bao was, he said something along the lines of her being like kiddish. She acted kitty or something like that. Like it was something that was,
she acted giddy.
Like when she got excited, she would get giddy, almost childlike, and it was a turn off.
Right.
And I mean, everybody have different things, you know what I'm saying, that turn them on and turn them off.
Right.
But I felt as though, and you can correct me if I'm wrong and say, you know, whatever, but I felt as though that was a cop-out as far as like what he really wanted to say or as far as what he was really feeling. One of the things with him is that this was a real relationship, real marriage, and I think that scared him. Even though he said he wanted to be married, I think it scared him because background in his story is that he was a playboy. So he always used to date around and stuff like that. And obviously what he was doing wasn't working, hence the reason why he ended on the show. So, and that's another thing, not just him, but a lot of people on the show would always say, oh, this is not typically the type of person I would be with or I would get with. And I'm like, well, you on the show for a reason, because obviously what you were doing was not working. So the experts, and those are the people basically who pair them together. You have a pastor, a family psychologist, I think it was, and
don't even worry about it.
I don't know, but three basically experts that paired these people together based on, like, you know, their characteristics, their goals, and different things of that nature. And when you, going back to Johnny, with him saying like, you know, he wanted to be married and she's typically not the type of woman that he would be attracted to or that he would date. In my mind, I was just like, well, that's good, because the type of woman that you were attracted to and that you dated obviously wasn't working for you for one reason or the other. And I feel like Bao had a certain amount of depth to her. And like I said, I feel like their relationship, it scared him. And that's why he kind of came up with a whole bunch of different excuses in my view, a lot of different excuses as to why things didn't work, but wasn't looking within. He had a lot of emotional baggage that he was dealing with because of his household, his upbringing. And that's not uncommon. A lot of us do, growing up in single family households. Me personally, also the same. But I think for guys, it's difficult when they're raised by their moms, primarily when their dad isn't in the picture. You tend to be a little bit more emotional because that's what you saw growing up, because you were raised by your mother. And between men and women tend to be more emotional than guys. So he was very emotional. And I don't think that he even realized how emotional he was until like after the fact. But because of that, his thinking habits, like I feel like he was thinking more emotionally than thinking
that this makes sense.
Yeah, like he wasn't thinking from a logical perspective, which typically guys are more logical. They tend to be more logical in their thought process, and that's why we work well together as men and women.
Right.
Because men tend to think logic first, whereas women, we do get to logic, but that's not necessarily the first thought process with us. And I felt as though that was a big issue between the two of them, because almost their roles were reversed in a sense, because Bao was way more logical, and he was way more emotional, which in a way it could have worked, but I think he was
in his own head.
Yeah, he was in his own head a lot.
And that's one of the things we were talking about as far as the divorce rate and its application to you. That's one of those factors that determines what your ability to stay married is.
Right.
What is your emotional intelligence?
Right.
Do you have control over your emotions, or do your emotions control you? Do you have the ability to stand back in a situation and assess, or do you just react? And then how do you react? There was a character on there, Michaela, who used to blow up all the time on a dime. Every time her and her husband at the time were to have a conversation. Then you have somebody like Amirla, who wasn't like, they used to Roma Amirla. Anyway, look, she was your typical modern woman. She didn't want to compromise on anything concerning her finances because she was doing well in life. The problem is, if you walk into a marriage and you say, I'm not going to compromise, you are automatically setting yourself up for hardship in your marriage. Immediately. Marriage is about compromise because men and women are different. I'm not worried about equal. We're different. And as long as we're different, there will have to be compromises. And if you're walking there talking about you're not going to compromise, I'm going to travel, I'm going to spend my money this way, don't get married. Because now I'm looking at the divorce rate and I'm like, it's you. It's people like you. It's people like you.
Stop it. Get some help.
It's messing up the divorce rate. This is why the divorce rate is the way that it is. So if you're one of those people and you see that you don't have those characteristics, if you have emotional intelligence, if you're patient, if you know that you have to have the people that you're dating vetted, if you know that you have to make sure that you and the people that you're dating have similar morality, that you have similar ideas, you have similar goals, you both want kids. You both like these basic things, you know, that are lined up together. Every time you click off one of those boxes and those real attributes to a person that matter and that will keep your relationship. What are your ideas on love? What are your ideas on gender roles? What are your ideas about finances? Once you start clicking off all of these boxes, you're increasing your ability to be able to find somebody that you can actually have a marriage that lasts with. The problem is a lot of people, because these are actually just standards. The problem is a lot of people put standards in there that don't necessarily add to the longevity in marriage. How good you look. You gotta make a certain amount of money. And the problem is a lot of these things are not going to keep you when things get hard, because they always get hard. Marriage always gets hard, guys. It's never always easy. For some people, it never is easy. I'm sorry if that's your experience. I'm so sorry. And maybe you have to find, as long as you want to stay married, you might have to find a way to accommodate that and change the dynamic of your relationship. And working on those long-lasting things are the way to do it. So I just wanted to put this out there because I see the time. Your ability to stay married is something that you can work on. You don't have, the 50% divorce rate doesn't necessarily have to apply to you if you do your relationship. If you do your relationship. If you do your due diligence. Relationships are just like everything else. The amount of time that you put into making them work, you reap the reward to it. It's just like your career. It's just like anything else that has to be worked on. Don't think that you don't have to work on relationships, just like you have to work on everything else in this life that's worth having. And I'm done.
Yes. Good job, baby.
Woo!
So the moral of the story is work on yourself.
Yes.
And make sure if you get with somebody, make sure they worked on themselves.
Yes.
So that way when the two of y'all come together,
That's right.
you have a higher probability of success.
There you go.
All right.
That was good.
All right.
All right, we ended it off good. We'll watch it back. Make sure everything else is good too.
That's it.
Hey.
Later.
Hey.